Today, I'm going to show you how I like to can pumpkin. You may have heard before that it's not safe to can pumpkin at home, but that's not entirely true. There is not a safe way to can pureed pumpkin at home, but you can process it as chunks, which then when you're ready to use it, you can just smash it up with a fork and use it just like pureed pumpkin that you get at the store. And if you stay tuned to the end, I'm going to show a couple of really delicious recipes that use pumpkin in ways that you wouldn't typically expect. First, you want to roast your pumpkin. Start by preheating your oven to 400 degrees and then get your pumpkin ready by washing off any dirt or mud and then finding a good place to cut it. I like to spread an old towel on the floor and work there, as this has been the easiest spot for me to wrangle the pumpkin. First, cut your pumpkin in half lengthwise from top to bottom and then scoop out all the seeds and stringy filling in the middle. I'm going to place my filling in a colander to set aside for roasting later, but you can just compost it as well. If you stay tuned to later in the video, I'll show you how I'd like to roast the seeds too. Next, cut off the stem chunks and then cut the pumpkin halves in half again. This should give you nice sized chunks to roast. Place the chunks in 9x13 pans skin side up. I like to try and squeeze 2 in each pan, and it is okay if they hang over a little bit. Sometimes though, the pumpkin pieces are just too big and you can only fit 1 in each pan. Pour about 1.5 cups of water in each pan. This works to gently steam the pumpkin. Place your pans in the hot oven and roast for about 35 to 45 minutes depending on the size of the chunks. You can test them by poking a fork in, and while it may still be tough to get it past the skin, it should be nice and easy to get it through the flesh. And once the flesh is that soft, they're done. Remove them from the oven and set them aside until they're cool enough to handle. To can the pumpkin, prepare your 7-quart jars by making sure they are clean and free of chips or cracks. Fill your pressure canner about half full of water and place it on the stove so it's ready to go. Make sure you keep the water temperature similar to the temperature your jars will be to help prevent them from breaking. Take your cold pumpkin and cut it into chunks, and then using a spoon, scoop it right off the skin. It usually comes off pretty easily, but just watch to make sure you don't catch any pieces of skin. Fill your jars to the bottom of the rim with pumpkin chunks. You want to fill them as full as you can, but don't pack them down too much as you don't want to create a puree. Once all the jars are filled with pumpkin, fill each one with just enough water to come to about the shoulder of the jar. You can even use the water left over in the pumpkin roasting pans to collect all those good pumpkin nutrients. Run a knife through the pumpkin in the jar to help eliminate air bubbles. Then wipe the rims with a clean wet cloth to make sure there's nothing on them. Place your new washed canning lids on top and screw on the rings. Place your jars in the prepared canner and either add or remove water to make sure the level's good. You want it about 2 inches above the tops of your jars. Add your lid and tighten in place. Pumpkin needs to be pressure canned, so it takes a little more watching than a water bath canner, but it's definitely worth the effort. Make sure your weight's in place and the lid is on tightly, and turn the burner on high. Keep a close eye on your canner until it reaches 11 pounds pressure, and then set your timer for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Turn your burner down a little so that the pressure stops rising, but continue to monitor it. You may need to turn it down more or even turn it up a little to keep the pressure level. Don't stress out if it goes a little over 11. It doesn't have to be perfect, you just don't want it to go below 11, and you definitely don't want it to get too high. Once the hour and a half is up, simply turn off the burner and allow the pressure to come completely down. Remember that even if the gauge is at 0, you still need to wait for the little pressure button to come down. Allow it to cool some and then carefully remove the lid. Using a jar lifter, remove the jars and set them on a towel in a quiet corner. Listen to make sure all your jars seal. They should each pop and the middle of the lid go down, and that's your signal that they're good. If for some reason one doesn't seal, you can allow it to cool and then either use it right away or place it in the fridge to use in the next few days so that it doesn't go to waste. Allow the jars to sit for 24 hours without disturbing them before wiping them off, labeling them with a date, and storing. Now let's take a quick peek at using your seeds too. Pumpkin seeds are full of nutrients, and it's so fun to roast them and play with the flavors too. Start by running your colander full of seeds through cool running water, using your fingers to go through the clumps of pumpkin. The seeds actually pop off pretty easily under running water, and you may be surprised how many appear from out of the pumpkin too. Once you've gotten all of the pulp off, pour the seeds onto a towel and pat them dry. You want to pat them as dry as you can, but don't just leave them on the towel, as they can then soak up the liquid and come out chewy at the end. Pour the dried seeds into a bowl and add in whatever seasonings you like. For this batch, I'm going simple and just using a couple tablespoons of olive oil and a little pink sea salt for a nice salty flavor. Pour them onto a parchment-lined baking sheet and spread them into a single layer. Bake at 250 degrees for 45 minutes, stirring them occasionally. Then turn the temperature up to 325 and roast for an additional 5 minutes to crisp them up. Then remove them from the oven, cool, and enjoy. There are so many ways to use pumpkin, but I know my mind typically goes straight to cookies, bread, or cupcakes. However, pumpkin is a really nutrient-dense squash whose sweet flavor can add tasty twists to lots of foods. Pumpkin baked beans being one example. These beans are simple to put together and they have a delicious smoky sweet flavor that is making them become a regular side dish at our house. Pumpkin cream chicken is another one that I think I'm going to be adding to a regular meal rotation. It has such a rich flavor that's slightly sweet and accented just a little bit by a touch of nutmeg. This sauce paired with moist chicken and your favorite pasta makes for an amazing dinner. I hope this video shows you how easy it is to can pumpkin right at home and also gave you some fun ideas for ways to use it. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up.